there has been renewed interest in Microsoft's recent software development, and one of them is, of course, changing the default font in Microsoft Office. This has happened in the past, but I will tell you why I don't think this is the best approach right now, particularly when we have other problems at hand. Of course, we cannot think about the present without delving into the past. So let me tell you a bit about TrueType and font smoothing. We have had TrueType fonts for a long time. Of course, right now we are calling them OpenType. There are so many ways in which we have changed our way of understanding font and the way in which they are shown on paper or on screen. Of course, there have been many changes and improvements over time, and one of them was making a common platform. However, there are some interesting differences that have appeared as we evolved. And one of them is, of course, font smoothing. Font smoothing was found to be important because we have screens, and screens have had traditionally quite low resolutions. We have to remember the fact that 640 by 480 was a resolution that was standard almost 30 years ago. So this is no surprise. However, we have had improved display capabilities. However, we also found out that fonts still could not be rendered properly as we were expecting. And of course, even recent display technologies still have not reached the amount of density that paper has. So this is one of the major reasons why the current situation is as it shows. However, the most important part is that font smoothing is something that was applied later on to font rendering. And this has created a whole array of issues, as you can probably guess. But let's see why the situation was like that. Well, first of all, we had to use all sorts of workarounds because the capability of having real-time rendering post-processing was expensive. So the first solutions found out more computing friendly solutions back then, which did not require high processing. However, as we moved on, we found out that these solutions are entirely non-satisfactory. And of course, this has evolved in the early 2000s, and since then we have not seen major differences. So we still cope with this problem, although we have high resolution screens and higher capabilities that of course lend to better results than we could achieve with early 2000s technology. But still the problem is not addressed, and I would like to tell you a bit more about what we are seeing with Microsoft's recent announcement. Well, we are creating a new font. We are setting a new default font in Microsoft Office. We have seen this before because, of course, there was Times New Roman, then we had Calibri, and the current trend is that probably Aptos will replace Calibri as the default font. But I don't think this will change much the way in which we handle current typography. And one of the most important reasons is that it doesn't change the basic foundation of font rendering. It's just a new font that probably has some improvements in the way in which it was designed, but this doesn't address the current issues we are seeing. So I think in most ways we are wasting resources by making such an approach viable. However, this is most likely probably a marketing interest, and I'm not going to argue with that. I'm just going to present why this is not enough. Well, we are left with all the other fonts that, for better or worse, will render the same. And I think this tells you a lot about what and how little this actually matters, despite everything you could see that, okay, this is the future. And right now, how do we cope with the problem and how we handle it? I think we still do so in a poor way. I have presented these two screenshots to tell you quite clearly why I think this is an issue. Some of you may have never seen the left window where you have the clear type text tuner, and of course we have to remember the fact that what you're seeing over here is only one of the steps, and still we have not reached the final step. And at each point is just us, the users, that are asked to choose what looks best for us, not what should be the best based upon our display. And if we want to change it, we could do so. And I still think this is the wrong approach. The clear type text tuner, I think, was introduced around Windows Vista. It may have been available a bit earlier on, but this tells you a lot, because the clear type text tuner is already at least 10 to 15 years old. So it's already a technology that is obsolete, along with clear type text that was made available clearly around 20 years ago, back in the Windows XP era. But the issue at hand is that we are not having a consistent way of reaching an adequate font rendering. And this is based on the fact that ultimately we have so many different display technologies. And if you remember what I showed to you in the previous slide, you may remember the fact that there were so many different ways of placing the subpixels, what actually creates what you see as a dot that could have a different color or be just white or black on your screen. And since you have to use each and every pixel individually in order to create a legible font, this means that we are facing the issue of having still a poor font rendering that mostly reaches to acceptable results. But this is not what we should be striving for. I mean, we have HDR, we have such advanced computing power available, and still we create text just as we did 20 years ago. And this is highly inappropriate. And as you can see on the right side, I have presented to you some samples of why the same issues are present. With a normal text that would be displayed on a sheet of paper, you would not see these color fringes, you would not see all these inconsistencies, because ultimately when they are created at a higher resolution, and of course the printer takes over this task. And even if there are some issues, they are going to be much less visible than on the screen, where we have a limited technology even today in creating the same resolution as on paper. So we are still having these issues, but we are content on choosing a new font. So yes, I still think we are making a wrong choice, but anyway, that's the way it is. It's more interesting in marketing and in other situations to show something that is flashier. And this is clearly what the new font is all about. So yes, I hope you enjoyed the video and found out a bit why a change may not always be all-encompassing or relevant enough for our current issues. So thank you very much for watching.